components. So as usual, we will just see briefly for 9th and 12th cranial nerves. Okay, this is right half of neural tube showing nuclei of various cranial nerves. So we are discussing glossopharyngeal and hypoglossal nerves. So in this case, where it is located, so 9, 10, 11, that is nucleus ambiguous in the lower part of medulla. So here we have component of 9th nerve, then here GVE, inferior salivatory nucleus, then in this triplet nucleus of tractus solitarius, that is 9, 10 and 7. So our 9th nerve is spread across nucleus ambiguous, inferior salivatory and nucleus tractus solitarius. Similarly, hypoglossal nerve, 12th cranial nerve, there is one whole dedicated nucleus here. It is in lower part of medulla, general somatic efferent. Okay, so and it will also contain some proprioceptive fibers. It will be shared with this trigeminal nucleus, spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Okay, broadly speaking, glossopharyngeal and hypoglossal nerve will broadly supply tongue, then tongue and mucous membrane of nose, palate, pharynx and larynx, general afferent sensations. Okay, so if we assess both, then it is usually spread across mucous membrane of nose, palate, pharynx, larynx, tongue, etc. So we will see glossopharyngeal nerve first. So this is functional components of glossopharyngeal nerve. We have seen 7, 9 and 10. That word gets repeated in all components. This is median sulcus, this is sulcus limitans. So if you remember facial nerve, it was sharing the similar components. पहले का medial side का ये निकाल दो, lateral side का ये निकाल दो, बाकी के पांचों को मिला दो. That will be your 7, 9, 10. Okay, so your 9th cranial nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve, will share the same components. See 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 10 and 7, 9, 10. Let's get repeated. So we will see these tissues one by one, two efferents and two efferents again. So glossopharyngeal nerve is nerve of the third pharyngeal arch. Remember 7, 5, 7, 9, 10 for 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6 pharyngeal arches. So 5, 7 and 9, that is 1, 2 and 3. Third pharyngeal arch belongs to glossopharyngeal nerve. It is supplying secretomotor fibers to the parotid and tongue, all mucous glands and salivary glands. One more thing, that is carotid sinus and carotid body. They are modifications of vascular tissue, tunica media of the carotid artery. Common carotid bifurcates into internal and external carotid. Along with this bifurcation, we have these two specialized tissues you already know from physiology. One is acting as chemoreceptor and baroreceptor. Okay, so the pathways are transmitted via glossopharyngeal nerve. So First, medial most component is special visceral efferent that goes to stylopharyngeus muscle. All the muscles of the pharynx, they are supplied by pharyngeal plexus. Plexus is made up of 9, 10 and 12th cranial nerves. Out of these, only stylopharyngeus alone is supplied by exclusively glossopharyngeal nerve. In general visceral efferent component, next is going to parotid gland, okay, and the pathway starts from inferior salivatory nucleus, so it will naturally involve otic ganglion, okay. Remember diagram of middle ear cavity. In the cavity of middle ear, the roof, there is greater and lesser petrosal nerve, and in the floor there is a tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal nerve penetrating, and it is forming plexus. So here general visceral efferent starts from inferior salivatory nucleus, then it will pass through otic ganglion via lesser petrosal nerve. General visceral afferent, that is again it is supplying pharynx, palate, posterior 1/3 of tongue, tonsil, etc. and in extra is carotid sinus and carotid body. So it is afferent components. It will carry sensations, general sensations from all these tissues to the NTS, nucleus tractus solitarius. If you remember, it is a U-shaped both-sided nuclei are joining from the lower part. It is having 7, 9 and 10 nerves component. So in upper part of NTS there is taste sensations relayed, and in lower part of NTS there is general sensations relayed. So this is general visceral afferent, so it will go to lower part of NTS. Spatial visceral afferent, that is taste. So naturally taste sensations is spatial visceral afferent. It is from the posterior 1/3 of the tongue plus circumvallate papilla. If you remember again nerve supply of the tongue, I will just revise you. Anterior 2/3 of tongue, posterior 1/3 and posterior most part. Three different nerve supplies. Anterior 2/3, two types of sensation in all three, that is general and spatial taste. Okay. Again, divide the tongue anatomically in three parts: anterior 2/3, posterior 1/3 and posterior most part. And in all three parts you will divide two sensation. One is general and one is spatial taste. So starting from anterior 2/3 of tongue, general sensations and taste. They have different nerves, lingual nerve and chorda tympani. Chorda tympani for taste and lingual nerve for general sensation. In posterior 1/3 and posterior most part, general and spatial both are carried by the same nerve. That is one posterior 1/3 glossopharyngeal nerve, both general and spatial sensation. Posterior most part of tongue, both general and spatial sensation by vagus nerve, that is internal laryngeal branch. So only anterior 2/3 has separate general and spatial nerves. The rest of them, posterior 1/3 and posterior most part, having same nerve for both general and spatial. So here glossopharyngeal nerve supplies general and spatial both from posterior 1/3 of tongue. You should read nerve supply and anatomy of tongue. You should revise all muscles and all papilla, and then you should read 9th and 12th cranial nerves. Together with this, you should revise branches of facial nerve, that is chorda tympani, and mandibular nerve branch, that is lingual nerve. All these nerves and a whole of the tongue you should read first, and then you should read 9th and 12th cranial nerves to better understand. So Remember nuclei of cranial nerves. We have three nuclei in the upper part of medulla: nucleus ambiguus, inferior salivatory, and nucleus tractus solitarius. I have already shown this in your components table. So nucleus ambiguus is brachiomotor. It is supplying stylopharyngeus muscle. Inferior salivatory is supplying parotid gland. It is parasympathetic. And nucleus tractus solitarius is carrying taste from posterior one third of tongue. That is gustatory component. If you see course and relation, then starting from the brainstem, this diagram represents anterior view of the lower part of medulla. So this is representing pyramid, and this is representing olive. So here we have median sulcus, here we have anterolateral sulcus, somewhere here you will have posterolateral sulcus. So from the anterolateral sulcus, that is between pyramid and olive, we have 9, 10 and 12th cranial nerves emerging. So these are the rootlets of these cranial nerves. So your glossopharyngeal nerve emerges from the anterolateral sulcus of medulla via multiple rootlets. So these are forming filaments of the rootlets. These filaments will unite to form single nerve trunk. Then it will come out. This in the side, this one represents 11th cranial nerve, that is cranial and spinal accessory. You will see in another lecture. So in the intracranial course, these filaments will unite to form single trunk. Then it will pass laterally and towards the jugular foramen. All of you should remember jugular foramen. It is transmitting 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerves. And for 12th cranial nerve, you have separate hypoglossal canal, that is anterior condylar canal. So jugular foramen transmits 9, 10 and 11 cranial nerves. It is also transmitting emissory vein and occipital artery and one of the inferior petrosal sinus. Okay, that is joining with jugular bulb. So it carries all the tissues. There is neurovascular compartment and it is neuronal will 9, 10 and 11 cranial nerve, and vascular means artery and venous sinuses. If I find a better diagram, I will show you people in some next lectures. Right now you can see here, this is your area of jugular foramen. This is jugular bulb or internal jugular vein, and it is connected from this side by inferior petrosal sinus. The sinus will pass from this side to the bulb of internal jugular vein, and around this sinus there is meningeal layer of dura mater enclosing all the structures. So this white area you can see, this whole white area is meningeal layer of dura. So dura is covering this 10th and 11th nerve separately, and it is covering 9th nerve separately. So this is glossopharyngeal dural fold, this is vagal dural fold. Okay, 9th nerve has a separate sheath of dura mater, and 10th and 11th has a separate sheath of dura. Then they will emerge from the base of the skull. So we are viewing this from the cranial side, that is posterior cranial fossa. We are viewing this from the superior side of posterior cranial fossa. So this glossopharyngeal nerve is connected to the cochlear aqueduct. This area is known as cochlear canaliculus. That is connected to cochlear aqueduct, and it communicates with the internal ear cavity. Remember internal ear, there is endolymphatic duct, cochlear duct and cerebral aqueduct. So via these three structures it communicates with subarachnoid space and CSF. So here this is cochlear canaliculus, which is leading to cochlear aqueduct, and from here our nerve will pass downwards between internal jugular vein and internal carotid artery. We will see in another diagram. So this has a separate sheath of durameter along with vagus and accessory nerves. It is passing in the middle cranial fossa and middle part of jugular foramen. And here it is related to cochlear canaliculus, inferior petrosal sinus, and then artery and vein also. Now we will see extracranial course of the glossopharyngeal nerve. This diagram represents extracranial course of glossopharyngeal nerve. Here we have three nuclei: nucleus ambiguus, NTS, and this inferior salivatory nucleus. These are the motor components, and the one afferent component is the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve also. So there are total 4 nuclei involved, 2 afferents and 2 efferents. This 9, 10 and 11 nerves will come out through this jugular foramen. Here glossopharyngeal nerve has a separate sheath of dura, and 10th and 11th has a separate sheath. When it comes out, there is 2 ganglion, superior and inferior ganglion. Same you will have in vagus nerve, superior ganglion and inferior ganglion of vagus. All these have separate names, but you remember this simple term, it is better for memory. Superior and inferior ganglion. Now inferior ganglion gives this tympanic branch. This tympanic branch enters in this floor of the middle ear cavity. Then it divides and forms tympanic plexus around the promontory of the middle ear. This tympanic plexus supplies tympanic membrane and mucous membrane of the middle ear. Then in the roof it is forming this lesser petrosal nerve, and this lesser petrosal carries postganglionic parasympathetic fibers, which is relayed in the otic ganglion. This is preganglionic fibers. After relay, postganglionic fibers goes to auriculotemporal nerve, and it is supplying parotid gland. So tympanic branch from inferior ganglion, tympanic plexus, lesser petrosal nerve, otic ganglion, postganglionic, auriculotemporal nerve, and parotid gland. This is pathway of secretomotor fibers supplying parotid gland. And these fibers naturally come from inferior salivatory nucleus. You can see this green color from inferior salivatory nucleus. It is ultimately terminating in parotid gland. Now this blue color goes to nucleus tractus solitarius. So this blue color represents efferents. One efferent from this tongue and pharynx, one efferent from the carotid sinus and carotid body. So after this, now gives motor branch. This red color represents motor branch that goes to stylopharyngeus muscle, that is general visceral efferent, general somatic efferent, and general another branch, that is lingual branch and pharyngeal branch. Okay, if you name these branches, this is tympanic branch, this is pharyngeal branch, muscular branch, this is lingual branch, and somewhere here there is pharyngeal branch, and the special branch, that is carotid branch, goes to receptors. Again, tympanic branch, muscular branch, tonsillar and lingual branch, pharyngeal branch, and carotid branch. Lingual branch goes to oropharyngeal isthmus. It is dividing in tonsillar branch and lingual branches. Here, tonsillar branch will supply mucous membrane around this opening of auditory tube, and it is also supplying this nasopharyngeal tonsil or tonsil proper. Remember Waldeyer's lymphatic ring. All the structures of this lymphatic ring, they are supplied innervated by this tonsillar branch. Then this is lingual branch. It is supplying two sensations: general sensation from posterior one third of tongue and taste sensation from posterior one third of tongue. This posterior one third plus velate papilla. Now this velate papilla is part of anterior two third of tongue. So anterior two third supplied by lingual nerve and coda tympani except velate papilla. Now this exception of velate papilla is supplied by our glossopharyngeal nerve. Pharyngeal branch goes to pharyngeal plexus along with vagus nerve, and it will supply all the muscles, pharyngeal muscles, superior, middle and inferior constrictor, and then stylopharyngeus, salpingopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus. 3 vertical and 3 horizontal group of muscles. Out of this, inferior constrictor is mostly supplied by this vagus nerve. Remember Killian's dehiscence and this neuromuscular incoordination forming Zenker's diverticulum and all. This carotid branch goes to two tissues, carotid sinus, that is baroreceptor, and carotid body, that is your chemoreceptor. Carotid sinus will sense the blood pressure sensations, and carotid body will sense chemical imbalance, that is produced by oxygen and carbon dioxide. So these two will have separate blood pressure and chemical sensations relayed in the medulla. Now this is a key diagram. This is mentioned in 9, 10, 11 and 12, 4 cranial nerves. This is a common diagram for all 4, 9, 10, 11 and 12 nerve. So you should refer this in all 4. Here you have a jugular foramen. We are viewing left sided tissue from left lateral side. This is superior, this is inferior, this is anterior, this is posterior. Okay. So your glossopharyngeal nerve, after emerging from inferior ganglion, it is going downwards. It is turning around styloid process and stylopharyngeus muscle. This is your styloid process. So it goes around styloid process. It is curving lower border of stylopharyngeus muscle. Here it passes between internal and external carotid artery, and it is below this lower border of stylopharyngeus. Then it runs over the substance of the muscle, and then it divides in the pharynx and tongue. So we have seen that branches of the names of the branches: tympanic branch going middle ear, carotid branch, this is pharyngeal branch going to pharynx and palate, muscular branch going to stylopharyngeus, tonsillar branch supplying soft palate and palatoglossus muscle. Clinical anatomy: lesion or damage to glossopharyngeal nerve. See, lesion of glossopharyngeal nerve will result in loss of all these sensations. So one is loss of taste in general from posterior one third of tongue, loss of gag reflex, loss of carotid sinus reflex, and general sensation plus this hypersensitive carotid sinus syndrome, that is called syncope. You can read these topics in the physiology: carotid sinus, carotid body, and syncope. And one more term, that is carotid massage, which is treatment of the syncope. So you should read this from the physiology. Gag reflex is also mentioned in physiology. It is a spasmodic contraction of the pharyngeal muscles due to stimulation of oropharyngeal isthmus. So if you touch something, some object in the oropharyngeal isthmus, then there is reflex, gag reflex. All of you are familiar with this gag reflex. So this pathway involves glossopharyngeal nerve. So if it is damaged, then you will have all these symptoms. Inflammation of the nerve, glossopharyngeal neuralgia. There will be short, sharp and severe attacks of pain in the distribution of whole of the nerves area. Jugular foramen syndrome, the space occupying lesion or compression of the jugular foramen. It results in multiple cranial nerve palsy. Multiple means 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerves. If you want to test your nerve, then you should test all these things clinically. One is posterior 1/3 of tongue, उसके ऊपर आप कुछ सब्सटेंस रख दो और उसके टेस्ट सेंसेशन को पेशेंट को पूछना है. Tickling on the posterior wall of pharynx will result in gag reflex, वो भी आप देख सकते हैं. So and in case of pharyngitis, inflammation of pharynx, you will have this all these tissues. There will be referred pain along with middle ear and nose, because all these nerves share the common nerve supply. And you can exclude Eustachian catarrh, that is inflammation of auditory tube. It will have separate symptoms of otitis media. It will not share the symptoms of pharyngitis. So your pathway of gag reflex is mentioned here. Neural pathway: touch sensation in posterior wall of oropharynx, glossopharyngeal nerve, inferior ganglion, nucleus tractus solitarius, nucleus ambiguous, then vago accessory complex. So from here, nucleus tractus solitarius and ambiguous, these sensations will be shared in the vagus nerve. So combination is a pharyngeal plexus. Combination of this 9th and 10th cranial nerve is together known as 9, 10 and 11 together known as vago accessory complex. That means 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerve complex plexus shared by these cranial nerves. So it is supplying constrictors of the pharynx. So afferent fiber starts from mucosa of the oropharynx, and efferent fibers reflex fibers initiated by constrictors of the pharynx. This is whole pathway of gag reflex. The pathway of test we have already seen in earlier lectures. Now we will see same components for hypoglossal nerve. So this is diagram of common diagram of jugular foramen. This whole area represents jugular foramen. You can see 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerve emerging from anterolateral sulcus. This is superior and inferior ganglion of 9th nerve. This is same for vagus nerve. Here there is communication between these nerves via communicating branches. And here your common diagram starts from 9, 10, 11 and 12 cranial nerve. Hypoglossal nerve supplying exclusively muscles of the tongue. You should remember muscles of the tongue, longitudinal groups and vertical groups, intrinsic muscles and extrinsic muscles of the tongue. So functional components, if you see, it is efferent components going to muscles of the tongue. Here afferent component is mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve, cranial most part, that is mesencephalic nucleus. Efferent component, that is your hypoglossal nerve supplying muscles of the tongue. It arises exclusively in hypoglossal nuclei, dedicated nucleus in the general somatic efferent column. You will have this term in the roof, in the posterior view of your brain stem. Posterior view, open view of the brain stem. There is one area called hypoglossal triangle, vagal triangle. This will represent elevated nuclei in the posterior part of this brain stem. You will see in brainstem diagram. So remember your facial nerve, components of facial nerve, motor nucleus. Motor nucleus was divided in upper half and lower half. Upper half receives both side ipsilateral and contralateral fibers. Lower half of nucleus receives only contralateral fibers. Same story gets repeated in hypoglossal nucleus. Here you should imagine two parts, upper part and lower part of hypoglossal nucleus. Upper part of nucleus is receiving contribution from both ipsilateral and contralateral fibers. Both are relayed in upper part of this hypoglossal nucleus, and in lower part only contralateral fibers are relayed. So you can see lower part receives only opposite half of fibers. So from this nuclei, efferent fibers, contralateral fibers goes only to genioglossus. So this is facial innervation. All the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue, they are supplied by both ipsilateral and contralateral fibers except genioglossus. Genioglossus is large bulky muscles. It is having only contralateral fibers from the cortex. So it will be, this fundamental is useful for clinical testing of protrusion of tongue and diagnosing palsy of supranuclear or infranuclear levels. So all muscles of tongue are having bilateral, that is ipsilateral and contralateral, except genioglossus, it is receiving only contralateral corticonuclear fibers. This is superior view of middle cranial fossa. You can see this is foramen magnum. Here we have two separate parts. This is your jugular foramen. This is 9, 10 and 11 cranial nerve from jugular foramen. This is your 12th cranial nerve, that is hypoglossal nerve. Separate anterior condylar canal or hypoglossal canal transmitting hypoglossal nerve. So relations of this, here this is transverse section of spinal cord, gray matter, white matter. Median plane there is anterior spinal artery, and in anterolateral part this is two-sided vertebral artery, right and left vertebral artery. Here this is right and left posterior spinal artery. So these are anterior side. These are the relations of these four cranial nerves. So you can see here this diagram. This is coronal section viewing from the left lateral side. We are viewing tissue of the right lateral side. We are viewing from the left lateral side. This is pons, medulla. These are the nuclei of hypoglossal nerve. From here your nerve emerges. This is inferior ganglion of vagus and glossopharyngeal. Remember the diagram of cervical plexus. You remember cervical plexus? C1, C2, C3, C4 and C5. C1, C2 joining here, C2, C3 joining here. So these 1, 2 and 3, they are forming loop. This loop is known as ansa cervicalis. Ansa means loop. Ansa cervicalis is having two roots. This is inferior root. This is superior root and this is inferior root. Inferior root coming from C2, C3, superior root coming from C1, C2. So this is C1, C2 forming superior root. This is C2, C3 forming inferior root. They have another names. Superior root is also known as descendens hypoglossi. Inferior root is also known as descendens cervicalis. So descendens hypoglossi and descendens cervicalis joining here forming ansa cervicalis. So this is cervical plexus and hypoglossal nerve. Both have these similar contributions. This red color goes to efferent component, that is muscles, general somatic efferent. So here this nerve goes to all intrinsic and all extrinsic muscles of the tongue. Our styloglossus is supplied separately. You should remember intrinsic muscles, that is vertical and longitudinal muscles, superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal, transversus and vertical. These are all intrinsic muscles. And in extrinsic, it is geniohyoid, genioglossus, hyoglossus and styloglossus. Okay, they are extrinsic muscles coming from all the bony parts and inserting on the tongue. So second name will be glossus and first name will be different parts of the bone. So it is emerging from anterolateral sulcus of medulla. Rootlets, these rootlets unite to form filaments. There are two bundles which are piercing separate sheath of dura mater. And in extracranial course we have seen this is the extracranial course. Another common diagram you can see here. This is your hypoglossal nerve. It is passing downwards. Here this is your posterior belly of digastric. So here it is crossing vagus nerve from lateral side. So this is hypoglossal nerve crossing laterally this vagus nerve, then it is going medially to the posterior belly of digastric, and here it is curving round lower border of posterior belly of digastric, and it is related to occipital artery. Here again it is going ventrally. Here this is common tendon of this both belly. From here it is related to lower border of anterior belly of digastric. So first it is lateral to vagus, then superior to posterior belly of digastric, then medial surface of posterior belly, then occipital artery, then here lower border of anterior belly of digastric. Here you can notice this loop of lingual artery. Lingual artery is forming loop. One more loop you can remember, auriculotemporal nerve, in the relation of this parotid gland. Okay, so here loop of lingual artery is related to hypoglossal nerve. From here it will go to the muscles of the tongue. So this is all course of extracranial course of hypoglossal nerve. So you can see this milestone. It is deep to internal jugular vein. It is between vein and artery, and it descends between vein and nerve. Then it relates to posterior belly of digastric, and it curves round, and then it relates to the loop of lingual artery, and finally it enters in submandibular region. Then it supplies the muscles of the tongue. So hyoglossus and genioglossus, substance of these two, it will enter in the substance of these two and supply all the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue. Branches we have seen, muscular branches and sensory branches. Before it exits this foramen, it also gives meningeal branch. Meningeal branch supplies meningeal layer of dura mater. So there is contribution of sensory and sympathetic component. Sympathetic will come from C1, C2, C3, that is superior cervical sympathetic ganglion. These fibers will pass via glossopharyngeal nerve and it will reach the meninges by meningeal branch. After this meningeal branch, it will descend and go to the muscles. Some branches are also going to thyrohyoid and geniohyoid muscles. These are the muscles related to hyoid bone, elevators of hyoid. Now, testing of muscle. Ask the patient to protrude the tongue. This is oral side, this is outer side of mouth. Ask the patient to protrude the tongue. If you protrude your tongue outside mouth, so in normal cases, genioglossus muscle is the most powerful fan-shaped bulky muscle which is contributing to the protrusion of the tongue. Major part in protrusion is by genioglossus. You remember, it is only contralateral corticonuclear fibers going to genioglossus. So in normal cases, both right and left side genioglossus will push the tongue outside. So this is anteromedial, this is anteromedial, both are nullifying and there is net result protrusion of tongue. Okay. So this is base of tongue pushed out of the mouth by genioglossus. So normally both will nullify the effect and there is net result protrusion of tongue straight forward. But in case of paralysis, in this diagram, left genioglossus paralyzed. If left genioglossus does not work, then this vector is not working and this vector is dominating. So normal genioglossus of left side is paralyzed. So normal genioglossus of right side will push the tongue to opposite side. That means in case of left genioglossus palsy, the tongue is going to the left side. So same side paralysis, there is deviation of the tongue to the same side of paralysis, that is corticonuclear fibers of genioglossus of the same side. So left corticonuclear palsy, protrusion of the tongue to the left side. Okay. In case of upper half of nucleus palsy, that is both ipsilateral and contralateral palsy, there is total nerve palsy. So there is gradual atrophy of the tongue muscles. All the muscles of the tongues are paralyzed. So in upper motor neuron lesion, you always know there is atrophy of the tongue. So all the muscles are atrophied. But in case of lower motor neuron palsy, only peripheral nerve palsy, there will be tone of the muscle intact. Okay. So in bilateral nerve palsy, there will be atrophy as well as this other function loss. Which are other functions? Speech, swallowing, taste, touch, means whole general visceral afferents, they are lost. In case of unilateral palsy, some of the sensations are spared. You can test them clinically. So this completes your lecture. If you have any questions, queries, you can raise in the chat box. Thank you.